So you want to own farmland. Not farm it. Own it. Your name on the deed, your fence line, your dirt, and somebody else's tractor working while you do absolutely nothing. And you already know the sentence that makes this the safest idea in finance. Buy land. They're not making any more of it. It's the one piece of money advice that survives every crash. Stocks can go to zero. Companies can vanish. But land is still there in the morning, and it always has been. That's the sentence. Now let's price it. An acre of American cropland costs, on average, $5,830. And if you rent that acre out to a farmer, which is what most owners do, the average cash rent in America is $161 a year. $161 on $5,830. That is a 2.76% return before property tax, before insurance, before a single repair. The safest asset anyone can name pays you less than a savings account on something that costs $6,000 an acre and cannot be sold in an afternoon. And here's the part that reframes the whole thing. In that same year, the farmer renting that acre from you lost about $150 on it. You collected. He lost. Same field, same 12 months. So this is not a video about farming. Almost 4 out of every 5 rented acres in this country are owned by somebody who does not farm. And by the end of this one, you'll understand why the people who own the land and the people who work are two almost completely separate populations. Because land really is safe. It's just not what you think safe means. Let's start with the price of admission. Farmland is priced in acres, and an acre is a strange unit because almost nobody has a feel for it. An acre is about the size of a football field without the end zones. The average acre of American cropland, $5,830 as of 2025. That's up 4.7% in a year, $260. And that's the 5th straight annual increase. This is not a market anybody has to be talked into. All farm real estate, that's land plus the buildings on it, averages $4,350 an acre. Also a record. Also up 4.3%. So let's build you a realistic starting position. Not a ranch, not an empire. A quarter section, 160 acres, which is the classic American parcel. The size a homestead claim was measured in. 160 acres of average cropland at $5,830 an acre is about $933,000. Nearly $1 million for a field. No building, no business, no employees. A rectangle of dirt with a road on one side. And that's average dirt. Prime Iowa ground trades at multiples of that. Irrigated land in the West carries a premium of more than 50% over dry land next door for the same soil in the same county. And you can see that split in rent too. Irrigated cropland rents for $244 an acre. Non-irrigated, same crop, same state, no water. Rents for $147. $97 an acre every year for the right to pull water out of the ground. That is what a third of the rent on an irrigated field is actually buying. That premium is not for the dirt. Hold on to that because in about 15 minutes, it's going to matter enormously. Now, you have a choice to make, and it's the choice that decides what business you're actually in. You can farm it yourself, or you can rent it to somebody who will. Farming it yourself sounds like the honest version. So let's price that too, because it is not one purchase. It's two. A new combine harvester, the machine that takes the crop off the field, runs between $380,000 and $600,000. The premium models pass $1 million. That is a single machine used a few weeks a year that costs more than half of what you pay for the land it drives across. And it only makes financial sense to own one past roughly 1,500 acres. Below that, the machine spends more time depreciating in a shed than working. So on your 160 acres, buying the equipment to farm your own land is close to irrational, which is exactly why most owners don't. They rent it out, they collect a check, and they become something with a name that should sound familiar by now, a landlord. Here's the first strange thing about owning farmland. It doesn't burn money the way every other asset in this series does. A hotel with no guests still runs the lights. A gym with no members still pays rent on the room. A casino that closes still burned $3.5 million a day. An empty field costs you almost nothing. No staff, no electricity, no doors to open at 6 in the morning. You can literally walk away for a year and come back to the same asset. That is the single most seductive fact in this entire business, and it is completely true. But almost nothing is not nothing, and the things that do cost you are the things that never stop. Property tax comes first, and it comes every year whether you plant anything or not. In farm states, it's assessed on productivity, which means the better your land, the more you're charged for owning it. Notice what that does. Improve the field, and the bill goes up. Success is self-taxing here, the same way it is on every building in this series. Then insurance, which has been climbing for the same reason it's climbing everywhere else. Then drainage tile, which is buried pipe that keeps a wet field from drowning, and which rots on a schedule measured in decades. Then lime and fertility, which is the part nobody outside agriculture knows about. Soil is not permanent. It gets acidic. It loses phosphorus and potassium. Left alone, an untouched field slowly becomes a worse field. Think about what that means against the sentence you started with. They're not making any more of it, true, but the piece you own is not fixed either. It is quietly getting worse unless somebody spends money to stop it. And on rented ground, the person spending that money is the tenant, which sets up a problem every landowner in this business knows. He is farming your dirt on a 1-year lease, and the things that protect soil for 30 years cost him money he may not be here to earn back. So the incentive runs the wrong way, and it runs that way on 4 out of 5 rented acres in America. Land does not maintain itself. It just fails slowly enough that you can pretend it does. And if you don't live nearby, and remember, most owners don't, you hire a farm manager to watch it for you. That's a percentage. It comes off the top from the same $161. None of these are dramatic. There is no $3.5 million a day figure here. That's what makes them dangerous. They're small enough to ignore, and they're subtracting from a number that was never big to begin with. So why does anyone do this? 2 reasons, and the first one is the one everybody names. The land goes up 5 straight years, for 0.7% in the last one alone. On your 160 acres, that's about $44,000 of appreciation in a single year, roughly 7 times what the rent paid you. Read that again. On average American cropland, the price went up 7 times more than the field earned, which tells you what this asset actually is to most of the people holding it. The rent is not the point. The rent is what you collect while you wait. And the second reason is quieter, and it's the one that makes farmland genuinely different from everything else we've taken apart. The rent arrives whether or not the farmer makes money. You sign a cash rent lease in the winter. The farmer pays you, often half up front, before a seed goes in the ground. Then he plants. Then it rains too much or not enough. Then prices move. None of that is your problem. Your $161 an acre was agreed in February, and it does not move in August. Every other owner in this series is exposed to their customer having a bad day. Empty rooms, canceled memberships, a cold streak at the tables. Here, the customer's disaster and your income are simply unrelated. You have bought the one position in agriculture that does not care about the weather. And there's a tax layer under it that makes it stickier. When you die, your heirs inherit the land at its value on that day, not what you paid. Decades of gains, wiped clean for tax purposes at the moment of transfer. Say you bought at $2,000 an acre 30 years ago, and it's worth $5,830 today. That's nearly $4,000 an acre of gain. Your children inherit it as though they paid today's price, and that gain is never taxed as a gain at all. And while you're alive, there's a matching trick. Sell a piece of farmland, roll the proceeds into another piece within the window, and the tax on the sale is deferred. Not canceled, deferred, potentially until the day the first rule takes over and erases it. So the land can move, and the gain can compound, and the bill can go unpaid across an entire lifetime. Which is why so much farmland never comes to market. It isn't being traded, it's being handed down. And that has a second-order effect on the price you pay. If the best owners have every reason never to sell, the acres that do reach the market are a thin slice of the whole, and thin markets price high. You are not competing with everyone who owns farmland. You are competing with everyone who wants some for the small fraction that any given year shakes loose. So the bait is real. Now here's what's hiding. Go back to your acre. $5,830 to buy. $161 a year in rent. Take 100 pennies and call that the price of the acre. The rent for a whole year is under 3 of them, 2.76%. And that's the gross number, before the property tax, before the insurance, before the manager's cut, before the tile you'll eventually replace. By the time all of that comes out, a typical owner is looking at something closer to 2%. On nearly $1 million on your quarter section, that's a return you could beat with a savings account and no fence to maintain. Here's where it gets interesting, because that number has been getting worse, and the way it's getting worse is the whole trap. In 2025, the price of an acre went up $260. In that same year, the rent on an acre went up $1. $1, 0.6%. The asset appreciated 260 times faster than the income it produces. Say that out loud, and it sounds absurd, but that is exactly what a compressing yield looks like. Every year the land gets more expensive and the check stays the same. The percentage gets smaller. The people buying farmland today are not buying income. They are buying an expectation and paying for it with the income. And now the part that makes this a genuinely uncomfortable business to be in. The average cost to grow an acre of corn in 2025 was about $897. Seed, fertilizer, chemicals, fuel, machinery, labor, and the rent he pays you. To break even at that cost, he needs corn at about $4.75 a bushel. On rented ground, closer to $5.25. The USDA's forecast price was $3.90. Do the math on that. He needs $4.75. He's getting $3.90. He loses about 85 cents on every bushel he grows. At the national average yield, 186 bushels an acre. That's a loss of over $150 on every single acre he farms. And it's the third year in a row. Production costs have fallen 3% since their peak. Corn prices have fallen more than 50%. So hold both halves of that in your head. On the same acre, in the same year, you collected $161. He lost $150. Your income is his cost. That's not a metaphor. The rent check you receive is one of the line items in the budget that put him underwater. And if the shape sounds familiar, it should. We took apart a bank on this channel, and the thing that made it work was that it sat in the position that collects first before anyone else in the queue got paid. That is exactly what you have bought here. Not a farm. The first claim on a farm's revenue, ahead of the person doing the farming. Which raises the obvious question, and it's the one this whole video has been walking toward. If the operator is losing money every year, how long can he keep paying you? The honest answer is, for a while. Longer than you'd think, and that's what makes this stable right up until it isn't. He keeps paying because stopping is worse. Give up the lease, and the machinery you bought for 1,500 acres now spreads across 1,000. Your cost per acre goes up on every acre you have left. So he holds on, farms more ground at thinner margins, and the arithmetic of scale drags the whole industry in one direction. Fewer, bigger operators renting from more, smaller owners. And that is precisely the shape the ownership data shows. Nearly 4 out of 5 rented acres in America are owned by people who do not farm them. Non-operator landlords own about 31% of all the farmland in the country. Not 31% of the rented land, 31% of everything. But here's the part that cuts against the story you've probably been told. 38% of those non-farming landowners are retired farmers. This is not mostly a story about Wall Street. It's a story about a man who farmed a field for 40 years, got too old to climb into the cab, and now rents it to his neighbor's son. Which brings us to the name everybody expects in a video like this one. Bill Gates is the largest private owner of farmland in the United States. About 275,000 acres across 17 states or more, roughly 248,000 of it actively farmed. Louisiana is his largest holding at over 69,000 acres. Arkansas is next at around 47,000. A single portfolio bought from a Canadian pension fund, plus one purchase of irrigated circles in Washington state, together ran past $690 million. And here's the number that should end the conspiracy rather than feed it. 275,000 acres out of roughly 900 million acres of American farmland is about 0.03%. The largest private farmland owner in the country owns about 1 acre in every 3,000. Whatever is happening to American farmland, one billionaire buying it is not the mechanism. The mechanism is much more boring and much harder to reverse. It's an average age, a pension, and a lease renewed every year with somebody else's son. And this is where the question this channel keeps arriving. It gets asked one more time from the other side. In our real estate video, the answer was to go and buy the land under the building. Well, this is the land. You bought it. You're at the front of the queue, and nobody is standing in front of you. And what you find when you get there is that the front of the queue is not a safe place. It's just a first place, 2.76%, and a tenant who loses money. Now let me show you what happens when the safest asset in finance stops being safe. It has happened before in living memory, and the people it happened to were doing everything right. Through the 1970s, American farmland did exactly what it's doing now. It went up every year for years. Exports were booming. Inflation was high, and land was the classic hedge. So farmers did the rational thing. They borrowed against the rising value of their land to buy more land. The collateral was going up, so the loan looked safer every year. Land peaked in 1981 at about $2,147 an acre. Then the Federal Reserve raised interest rates to break inflation. In 1981, they touched 21.5%. Nothing happened to the dirt. The soil did not change. The rain came the same. Every field in Iowa was exactly as fertile on the day after as the day before. Iowa cropland fell 61% between 1981 and 1987. Nebraska fell 46%. Illinois 42%. Minnesota 39%. Missouri 38%. Land that had never gone down in anyone's working memory lost most of its value in 6 years, and it took 2 decades to fully recover. And the ones destroyed were not the careless ones. They were the ones who had expanded, who borrowed against a rising asset to buy more of the same rising asset, exactly as the arithmetic told them to. That is the risk in this business, and it isn't weather and it isn't drought. It's that the price of your land is set by the cost of money, and you do not control the cost of money. There's a second one, and it's slower, and it's happening right now underneath about a fifth of American irrigated agriculture. Remember that premium, the 50% more you pay for irrigated ground over dry ground in the same county. That premium isn't for the dirt. It's for the water underneath it. Across the Great Plains sits the Ogallala Aquifer. Somewhere between 80 and 90% of the water drawn from it goes to irrigation, on the order of 2.5 billion gallons a day. It is being drawn down faster than it refills. In parts of western Kansas, farmers and legislators are now negotiating cuts to their own water use because the alternative is running out. By one estimate, the aquifer makes Kansas agricultural land roughly $3.79 billion more valuable than it would otherwise be. Projections suggest more than 1 acre in 8 of currently irrigated land there could revert to dryland farming by 2050. And when a water right goes, the field looks absolutely identical from the road. Same soil, same fences, same sky. It has simply lost the thing half its price was for. 2 ways to lose, then. A rate decision made in Washington, or a water table falling 4 feet a year. Neither one has anything to do with farming. So should you own farmland? In a good year, it's genuinely one of the most durable things you can hold. The land does not burn down, it doesn't go out of fashion, it can't be counterfeited, and it has gone up 5 years running. Your heirs receive it with the tax on those gains erased. Nothing about that is a trick. In a bad year, you own a nearly $1 million asset returning about 2%, rented to somebody losing $150 an acre, priced by an interest rate you don't control, and half its value may sit in an aquifer you can't see. So here's the whole thing in one frame. You're not buying a farm. You're buying the first claim on a farm's revenue. That claim pays 2.76%, and it's shrinking because the price of the land is running away from the rent while you watch. The person paying you is losing money on the same acre. The value of what you own is set by the cost of money and, in the West, by the depth of a water table. And you cannot sell in a week. Every other owner we've taken apart could be beaten by their own customers. Empty rooms, cancel memberships, a bad season. A landowner cannot. A landowner gets paid first in every year, in every weather. That is the strongest position in this entire series, and it returns less than a savings account. That's the trade nobody mentions when they say they're not making any more of it. It's true. They're not. They also aren't making any more rent. And somewhere tonight, there's a field with nothing on it. No lights, no staff, no doors, quietly worth $900,000, earning less than the money market account of the man who owns it, and he has never once regretted buying it. So, would you actually own it? Yes or not a chance? One word in the comments. And if there's a business you want put under the microscope next, drop that too. Thanks for watching. And the next time somebody tells you to buy land because they're not making any more of it, ask them what it pays. Subscribe, and we'll take another business apart next time.